We have a very active and dangerous setup unfolding over the next several days, and I need you to understand the full scope of what is coming, because this is not a single severe weather day. This is a multi-day compounding storm system that kicks off today, ramps up significantly into Monday and Tuesday, and then transitions into a prolonged heavy rain event across the south and southeast that will last well into the Memorial Day weekend. When you look at the overall jet stream pattern driving the system, it becomes very clear very quickly why meteorologists are treating this as one of the most significant storm setups of the entire month of May. Let me start with the jet stream because that is where this entire story begins. The upper level trough is going to dig all the way down into the Rockies, and as it ejects northeast of Denver, that is what triggers the widespread showers and thunderstorms across the Central Plains. But what makes this setup so much more dangerous than a typical spring system is that you have not one but two active jet streams working simultaneously. The polar jet stream is dropping south and east, providing the large-scale lift and wind shear that organizes storms and gives them rotating structure. At the same time, the subtropical jet stream becomes active across the southern tier of the country, pumping Gulf of Mexico moisture northward into Texas, Oklahoma, and well up into the Mississippi Valley. When both jet streams are running simultaneously and feeding into the same storm system, the energy available to fuel severe weather is enormous. CAPE values across the warm sector are going to be reaching 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. That is an extraordinary amount of instability, and it means any storm that taps into that fuel supply has the potential to become very intense very quickly. On top of the dual jet stream setup, you also have an active low-level jet stream that is going to be lifting well north into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan through the overnight hours. That low-level jet is the ingredient that takes a hail and wind day and turns it into a tornado day. When you have 40 to 50 knot low-level jet winds creating rapid directional wind shear through the lower atmosphere, thunderstorm updrafts begin to rotate, and rotating updrafts produce tornadoes. The combination of the polar jet, the subtropical jet, and an active low-level jet, all feeding the same system simultaneously, is what has forecasters paying very close attention to the Monday and Tuesday window in particular. Before we get to the peak of the outbreak, let me walk you through what is happening today, because today is not a quiet day by any stretch. The dry line is setting up east of Amarillo and east of Lamar, Colorado, and that is the focus for storm initiation this afternoon. East of Denver is where widespread showers and thunderstorms are going to erupt into the heat of the afternoon, and these storms could be significant hail producers across Kansas and Nebraska. The dry line is also going to be attempting to break a strong capping inversion across western Oklahoma and far northwest Texas, and if it succeeds, storms that fire along that boundary will have access to the extreme instability sitting below the cap. We are looking at the potential for wind gusts approaching 60 to 75 miles per hour. Large hail, including some 2 and even 3-inch diameter hail, and unfortunately a real risk of strong tornadoes as that boundary sets up and storms organize along it through the afternoon and early evening. The primary tornado corridor today runs from near Goodland, Kansas north through Topeka, back into Hastings, Nebraska, swinging northeast through Omaha, and eventually into Des Moines later in the evening as the system lifts northeast. If you live anywhere in that corridor, today is not a day to be caught without a plan. And then, on the west side of today's dry line, there is a completely separate and equally dangerous threat that I want to address directly. East of Amarillo and into the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, we have a dangerous wildfire setup developing. The conditions out there are as bad as they get. Relative humidity values are sitting at 10 to 15%. Wind gusts are cranking up to 40, 50, and 60 miles per hour in some areas. The fuel is bone dry. It is the kind of environment where any ignition source can produce a fire that accelerates and jumps boundaries faster than evacuation can keep pace with. If you are in the Texas Panhandle or Oklahoma Panhandle region today, be on high alert. Know your evacuation routes. Do not wait for the fire to be visible before you start moving. Tomorrow, Sunday, is where this outbreak begins to amplify. The cool front intensifies as it pushes southeast and the tornado threat increases notably compared to today. We are now looking at the potential for strong tornadoes, and some of those could be in the EF2 to EF3 range. The primary risk corridor on Sunday extends from the Sioux Falls region back into Hastings, back into Goodland, and this time the threat pushes further northeast, approaching the Minneapolis metro. That is a significant geographic expansion of the tornado risk compared to today. Wind gusts potentially reaching 80 miles per hour along and ahead of the dry line on Sunday, and significant hail potential, again extending from Sioux Falls back into Hastings and Goodland. Storm initiation may be delayed into the afternoon as the cap holds, but once storms break through, they will have access to extreme instability and the results can be rapid. And then Monday arrives, and this is the day that has the highest confidence of being the most significant severe weather day of the entire outbreak. The Storm Prediction Center already has a significant risk in place for Monday from good portions of western Oklahoma through Kansas, feeding back into northwestern Missouri, extending across Iowa, and pushing all the way north into Wisconsin up toward Marquette and across into Michigan. That is an enormous geographic footprint for a significant risk category. And the fact that they are expressing that level of confidence 3 days out tells you everything you need to know about how well forced this setup is. Colorado State University's tornado probability output is showing high probabilities of significant severe weather with strong tornadoes. EF2 and EF3 type variety, possible. Hail 2, 3, even approaching softball size is not out of the question with the strongest supercells. Wind gusts up to 80 and 85 miles per hour are likely in some areas. Monday is a dangerous day, and it needs to be taken seriously well in advance. Tuesday becomes the secondary punch of this system, and I want to spend a moment on why the Tuesday setup is dangerous in its own right, and not just a footnote to Monday. The storm system actually re-energizes on Tuesday as the upper-level trough ejects further northeast, and a new surface low develops across the central plains. This gives the system a second wind, literally, and the wind shear profile on Tuesday afternoon is going to be very favorable for supercell thunderstorms across the Illinois and Missouri corridor. A lot of people in the Midwest are going to focus on Monday and then let their guard down on Tuesday. That is a mistake. Tuesday is a significant severe weather day in its own right for a large and populated corridor of the central United States. The Water Vapor Transport Index shows Gulf moisture being pumped aggressively northward into Texas and Oklahoma ahead of the front, feeding well north into Iowa and back into Wisconsin. Tuesday extends the severe weather risk into a new corridor that includes Tulsa, northwestern Arkansas, Springfield, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Chicago, and eventually Grand Rapids. If you live anywhere in the Illinois, Missouri, or Indiana corridor, Tuesday is your primary day of concern, even though the outbreak starts today. Cape values remain at 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram across the warm sector on Tuesday as the subtropical jet continues to pump Gulf moisture into the system. The severe weather threat on Tuesday is real and widespread. But here is where this storm system becomes truly unusual and why I called it the biggest storm of May. Most severe weather outbreaks last 1 or 2 days, and then the atmosphere resets. This one does not reset. Instead, the cold front stalls. It stalls right around the Interstate 20 corridor, just north of that line. And when a front stalls in a moisture-rich environment with an active subtropical jet stream overhead, you get what meteorologists call an overrunning setup. Warm, moist air from the Gulf slides northward and rises up and over the stalled boundary, producing continuous showers and thunderstorms day after day across the same geographic areas. By Wednesday, that overrunning setup is already in place, with heavy rain extending from West Virginia back through Kentucky, all the way into Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and back into the Dallas and Austin regions of Texas. Thursday, the pattern looks essentially the same. Friday, it still looks the same, because the front is not going anywhere. It is just meandering slowly, not making meaningful progress in either direction, and that means the rainfall totals are going to compound over days and days across the south and the southeast. When you add up the rainfall totals over the full 10-day period from this event, the areas in the heaviest precipitation zones are easily looking at 2 to 4 inches of total rainfall, and in the most persistent overrunning corridors, some locations could see significantly more than that. This is a compounding rainfall event, not a single rainstorm, and that distinction matters enormously for flash flood risk. Rivers and creeks that absorb 1 inch of rain on Monday, then another inch Tuesday, then another inch Wednesday on top of already saturated soils do not respond gradually. They respond suddenly. Flash flood emergencies in this kind of prolonged overrunning setup are not rare. They are expected. After a spring that has already delivered repeated rounds of heavy rainfall to parts of the south and southeast, the soil moisture across much of this region is already elevated above normal for late May. Every additional inch of rainfall from this event goes directly to runoff. That makes flash flooding a serious and compounding concern across the south through the entire middle portion of the week, and it deserves equal attention alongside the tornado and hail threat that headlines the early part of this outbreak. And then as we roll into the Memorial Day weekend, the front backs up as a warm front, and the heat returns to the south and southeast. There will not be much cold air left in the picture by Memorial Weekend, but that warm front lifting back north is going to continue to generate rain across the southeast, the Tennessee Valley, portions of the Ohio Valley, and into the mid-Atlantic. It is not going to be a dry Memorial Weekend for a large portion of the eastern half of the country. The western United States, meanwhile, stays dry. It has been dry out west, and that continues for at least the next 10 days with no meaningful rainfall signals for California, Nevada, Arizona, or the Great Basin. Here's where things stand right now. Today brings strong tornadoes, giant hail, and dangerous wildfire conditions across the southern plains. Sunday amplifies the tornado threat and pushes it further northeast toward Minneapolis. Monday is the peak outbreak day with a significant risk already posted across a corridor from Oklahoma through Wisconsin. Tuesday delivers the secondary punch into the Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana corridor. Wednesday through Friday transitions into a prolonged overrunning heavy rain event across the south and southeast as the front stalls near Interstate 20. And the Memorial Weekend brings warm temperatures back with continued rain across the southeast. This is one massive multi-phase storm complex that is going to dominate the weather story across the entire eastern half of the country for the next 10 days. The severe weather threat alone spans 5 consecutive days from today through Tuesday. The heavy rain and flooding threat extends beyond that through the Memorial Day weekend. No single region escapes this system without at least one significant weather hazard in its 7 to 10 day window. The plains get the tornadoes and hail first. The south and southeast get the prolonged flooding rain through midweek. The Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic get the overrunning moisture and rain through the weekend. And the northern tier from Wisconsin into Michigan gets hit by the severe weather corridor on Monday and Tuesday before the pattern finally shifts. Make sure you are staying updated daily because the details on each of these days will continue to evolve as the models refine the track and timing of the system. Like this video, hit the subscribe button, and I will have the next update ready for you very soon.